Caesar. One of Rome's greatest leaders. But why was this man killed? Who had the courage to raise the knife that would change the course of history? Betrayal, the hunger for power, fear, regret. An event that shattered not just a man, but an entire era. If you too have always wondered the same question, who really killed Caesar? In this video, we will uncover all the secrets behind the darkest murder in history. If you're ready, our journey into Rome's greatest betrayal begins now. Rome. The city where thousand-year imperial dreams were born, where power flowed through the streets like veins. But beneath all that grandeur lies a single question. Who killed Caesar? Was it a lone assassin? Or a far greater plan, one history books have quietly buried until now? One of the most famous murders in human history. Yet strangely, no one seemed pleased with the outcome. The Senate was distressed. The people were frightened. And most of the assassins looked as though they knew what fate awaited them. So why did they do it? Was it truly to save Rome? Or was there a deeper force behind the scenes, one even Caesar himself failed to see? In this video, we will break down the day of the assassination step by step, like detectives. We will uncover why those who, 1, died within months. How Caesar was stabbed by those who called themselves his friends. And who the real decision-makers were, the ones history never mentions. The truth is far more complex. And far darker. In the final months of his life, Julius Caesar seemed to have complete control over Rome. Victories had been won, enemies had surrendered, and the people hailed him as a hero. But the truth was this. Many in Rome hated the idea of so much power concentrated in one man. Caesar was a reform machine. He reorganized debt laws, restructured the calendar, and reduced the Senate's authority. And most importantly, he declared himself dictator for life. For Rome, this was a blaring red alarm. Because if Rome despised one thing above all else, it was kingship. Centuries earlier, they had expelled their kings and built the republic as a sacred ideal. The more Caesar's power grew, the clearer one unspoken sentence became on the faces of the senators. This man is bringing back the monarchy. But the issue wasn't just power. Caesar was proposing laws that threatened the wealth, status, and political influence of Rome's elite class. He restructured taxes, redistributed lands to his soldiers, and increased the people's loyalty to him. The Senate could no longer break Caesar's bond with the public. And when politics fails, Rome often resorted to one solution. If a leader can be removed. In Rome that usually meant by dying. March 15, 44 BC. It appeared to be an ordinary day in Rome. But in truth, the darkest plan in Roman history had already been finalized in secret rooms hours earlier. Caesar's day began poorly. His wife Calpurnia had nightmares all night and begged him not to go to the Senate. Caesar almost listened. But then someone arrived at his door. Decimus Brutus. A close friend of Caesar. And one of the key architects of the assassination. Decimus told Caesar that the Senate was waiting, that if he didn't go, he would be mocked. Caesar was convinced. And in that moment, Rome's fate changed. As Caesar walked toward the Forum, an unusual silence hung over the city. It was as if everyone knew something was about to happen, yet no one spoke. The Senate building, the Theater of Pompey, was unusually crowded. And one more detail. Caesar's bodyguards had been ordered not to enter. By whom? By someone Caesar trusted the most. The moment Caesar stepped inside, the destiny of the Roman Republic was sealed. The moment of Caesar's death is often summed up with one phrase. 23 stab wounds. But it wasn't that simple. This was one of the most organized and professional political operations in Roman history. Around 60 senators were involved in the plot. But only about 20 delivered the fatal blows. Meaning, this wasn't the act of a few fanatics. This was an elite political execution orchestrated by Rome's ruling class. The plan was simple. The senators would surround Caesar under the pretense of greeting him, each striking in turn. The goal? To ensure the crime could not be pinned on a single person, making them all equally guilty. The first stab came from Servilius Casca. But Caesar turned and pushed Casca away. Chaos erupted. The attackers began striking wildly. And Caesar was no longer just an enemy, he was a symbol that had to be toppled. Yet the real tragedy wasn't the violence. It was the betrayal. Marcus Junius Brutus, Decimus Brutus, Cassius, Trebonius. Most of them were his friends, students, or political allies. Caesar's supposed last words were directed at Brutus. "You too, Brutus?" But historians believe this is likely a myth. Regardless of what he said, those who witnessed it all wrote the same thing. At that moment, Caesar stopped fighting. Because the blow wasn't physical. It was a betrayal to the soul. So why did they do it? Did these men really kill Caesar to save the Republic? Short answer, no. Long answer, much darker. Cassius resented Caesar for overshadowing his military career. He wasn't driven by ideology, but personal ambition. Brutus, an idealistic aristocrat fascinated by philosophy. But the key detail: his ancestors had led the revolt that abolished the Roman monarchy centuries earlier. To Brutus, Caesar's king-like behavior was an insult to his family's legacy. This made him symbolically the most important conspirator. Decimus Brutus, one of Caesar's most trusted men, yet a critical mastermind behind the assassination. He convinced Caesar to leave his house. He belonged to the aristocratic class threatened by Caesar's reforms. A class watching its power crumble. At the core of the entire plot lay one motive: money, power, and the preservation of elite privilege. Rome's aristocratic families were losing economic power through Caesar's reforms. And worse, Caesar's rise was destroying their political dominance. This wasn't a movement to save the Republic. It was a campaign to reclaim lost power. Back to our initial question. Who killed Caesar? Casca? Brutus? Cassius? Decimus? The real answer is not one person. The real answer is Rome itself. Caesar was killed by the aristocracy's fear of losing its centuries-old power. They destroyed Caesar to protect their own order. But the irony is this: Caesar's death didn't save the Republic. It accelerated its collapse. Rome descended into civil wars. Then came Augustus. And what they wanted to prevent happened anyway. Rome became an empire. The assassins sealed their own fate. Brutus and Cassius fled and died in exile. Decimus was captured and executed. Almost every conspirator died within a year. History rarely writes such irony. Caesar died. But Caesar's legacy made Rome even stronger. In the end, one truth remains: Caesar wasn't killed by knives, but by Rome's own fears, intrigues, and contradictions. We've come to the end of our journey, where we relived one of the darkest days in Rome's history. If you've watched this far, it means you've walked with me through the shadows of the past. Thank you. On this channel, we explore humanity's turning points, forgotten secrets, and events long buried in darkness. And this journey doesn't end here. The direction of future videos is entirely in your hands. I've shared a poll in the community section of the channel. If there's a topic you'd like to see in the next documentary, just drop it there. Your choices shape the future of this channel. Today, we uncovered the chain of betrayal behind Caesar's death. Tomorrow, it might be the lost campaigns of the Roman legions, the untold side of the Spartacus rebellion, or the real story behind the empire's final days. Thank you for being here. See you on the next discovery.